Islam, chapter 10. We're going to begin at verse 20. Islam, when men are afraid of Allah and take him for a foe, they dress up other men in fancy garbs and call them priests and charge them to restrain the wrath of Allah by prayers. And when they fail to win his favor by their prayers, to buy him off with sacrifice of animals or birds. When man sees Allah as one with him, as Father Allah, he needs no middleman, no priest to intercede. He goes straight up to him and says, "My Father God, Allah." And then he lays his hand in Allah's own hand, and all is well. And this is Allah. You are each one a priest just for yourself. And sacrifice of blood, Allah does not want. Just give your life in sacrificial service to all of life, and Allah is pleased. Islam, well, that is not a difficult thing to do. It is read very plainly and simply. Just be who you are. Don't be led by other men. Somebody grab you by your hand and lead you down a dark alley and bust your head wide open. Islam, this is what's happening in our communities today. This is what's happening in our society, Islam. It's happening all around the world.
That's right.
Islam, all over the world. Men are being led by other men. Islam. See, you got to understand something, Moors. Shaitan is a faceless enemy. And he's everywhere. He's to and fro and back and forth.
Right.
Islam. It demonstrates in questionnaire that, what are you going to say? Islam, I'm going to and fro. Back and forth.
That's right.
Seeking whom I may devour. So Satan, don't get it twisted, Moors. He's not a spook. Definitely not a spirit. Islam, if man must find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. Islam, we are our own worst enemy. We create our own hell. Islam, just as we are capable of creating our own hell, we are capable, even more so, of creating a heaven for ourselves by doing our due diligence. Islam, you don't need a priest.
That's right.
Islam, if man would decide for himself that he would become one with Allah by studying scripture and being a better person and allowing himself or herself to serve humanity, you are well. Islam, the only thing that we do when we go to church or to the temple or the mosque is to fellowship with other men and women. Islam, you don't need no one to guide you. We just read that in the Koran. Islam. So we seek peace. We seek to find this divine love. Islam. We seek truth. And we apply these things to ourselves and to our communities and to those we come into contact with in order to better our condition. Islam, if you would seek to better your conditions, then join the Moorish Temple of America. It's the only organization that has the answers
Make it
to
plain.
the ills of society today. Islam,
That's right.
that's the only organization. You can search high and low, and you won't find an organization like the Moorish Temple of America which addresses the ills of our society and our people. Islam. So, Moors, as always, I extend my divine love. It comes from within and it comes from on high, that I might be able to share it with you in word or in deed. Islam. So with that, Moors, I will yield the floor over to our grand governors. Praise Allah, honor the prophet, peace and love.
Islam, 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 Islam. All praises due to Allah, honors to his holy name, all honors to his holy divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Islam Moors. Today is our Quran class. We are March 15, 2023. We are fastly approaching the celebration that they call St. Patrick's Day. And for those who have been here, you know that I've been speaking on us getting into who are these snakes that was driven out of Ireland. Islam, who are these snakes who has been driven out of Ireland, which is the representation of the celebration for St. Patrick's Day.
Islam.
Islam. Now, most of the time when, we ask that question, the first thing more is to say is, oh, those are the Lemurians, right? Those are the Lemurians, because that is the popular information and studies that most Moors have gotten into when we're talking about who the snakes are that was driven out of Ireland. But I want us to go just a little bit deeper to really see who these snakes truly are, because we still see them every day and we're not noticing that we actually interact with them. We actually see them, that they're actually here in the United States of America. So we're going to be getting into that on this evening. So for those who are new, this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are glad to see that you are here with us all. I'm going to take a reading out of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guiding of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to ordain man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. And I'm going to go to chapter 11. I'm going to share my screen with you all. How y'all doing this evening? Want to remind all of the co-hosts to make sure that you are letting people in as they come in. Islam, how's the Moors doing this evening?
Islam, praise Allah, all is well. I put a couple things in there about islands straight off of Google as well.
Islam.
And the snake.
Islam. So Neil Bay is the only one that's doing well this evening. Is that right?
Islam, all is well, says Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Brother McClaudio, glad to see that you're looking better. Praise Allah for you, brother. We didn't know what was going to have to do. We was going to have to conjure something up for you or what, but glad to see that you are doing well, way better than you was before.
Islam, I appreciate that. Gratitude.
Islam, gratitude. I'm glad to see the doctor was able to do something for you, because they said that you was looking like Hitch, Mo. We just want to make sure that you are doing well. Islam.
Islam, indeed.
Praise Allah.
That's a bad look there.
That's a bad look there.
Love intended, more love intended.
Islam.
Good evening to all the Moors. Gratitude, Grand Governess, for the education you getting ready to just blow our heads up open with.
That's right.
I am excited. I'm making my way out of work to my car, so I'll be listening on the drive home.
Yes, no, I'll
And
make
I'll
sure
get
I
active
won't
when I get
drive too
home.
much. I'll make sure I won't drive too much so you can make it home to take your notes.
Yes, indeed. Gratitude.
Islam. All right, so chapter 11 the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the title of chapter 11 is Jesus and Barada together they read the sacred books. Jesus and Barada together they read the sacred books, Islam. And it starts off giving us a background of Barada, and it shows his growth, right? It shows the growth of Barada. Chapter 11, honestly, is one of my favorite chapters because it really reminds me of my growth and what I have, like years ago, I would have never been able to put this together, what I'm teaching tonight. You know, years, I would have never been able to put this together because it just wasn't the timing. I didn't have the study. I didn't have the years. I definitely didn't have the patience to really get into studying world history. In the past maybe about 3 years, I really have been going so hard on studying world history because I got to the point where I got tired of asking for other sources outside of Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, outside of the Bible, outside of the Noble Quran. Like, what other sources can we go to that are primary sources or secondary sources to actually show and prove what the prophet said? Because if he didn't bring anything new, then we should be able to go and find what it is that he brought in other places. We shouldn't just be stuck within the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America and say, well, the prophet said it and that's it. Because we're not dogmatic.
That's right.
Right? We're talking about science. So if we're talking about science, we're talking about Moorish science, and we're talking about world science, because that's exactly what Moorish science is. It's world science and it's world history.
Islam.
So we should be able to travel all over the world and see and understand Moorish science and Moorish history and go back to divine instruction from the Holy Prophet out of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America and say, oh, wow, that's what he was talking about.
That's right.
That's what he was revealing. And so as I began to work on just really going really hard and study, and I was doing just a little, I was like doing a little bit. I wasn't doing a whole lot of studying world history, but I really started to get into a lot of world history right around the time when we was finishing up the trust information 2 years ago. That's when I started getting super heavy into it. But I had already started maybe a year prior to that, and I had to keep going back and, you know, go study some more, because that's how you really are able to figure out your experiments, right? When it's a science experiment, you got to take this out, you got to add this, you got to adjust that, right? To make sure that the experiment comes out the way that you planned for it to. Islam. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what we've really been focused on, teaching you all. We just went through the treaties, and hopefully each and every one of us see that those treaties were really one-sided. Every now and then the treaties would drop a jewel here and a jewel there, but the majority of the treaties were one-sided. And I'm gonna, after we get finished with these snakes, I'm gonna go back into really showing why the treaties were one-sided. And still, even to this day, you have Moors that's trying to resurrect some of these treaties that made us bound in the first place, because they would rather not do their self-work. The first divine instruction from the Holy Prophet that we all receive is to know thyself and thy Father God Allah. So that means that your brother can't teach you. Your sister can't teach you. Your brother can't show you. Your sister can't show you. This is a self-experiment. You gotta do your own work.
Teach.
It's not a group think thing. It never has been. And for many Moors, for some reason, we can't do anything unless the group is doing it. That is a handicap. I'm going to say it again. That is a handicap. Why do we have to do only what the group is doing when our first instruction is to know thyself and thy Father God Allah? That means it ain't group work. It ain't group work. Then it gets into the genealogy. So that means that you got to do your own families. See, these families are blood tied. Our families are blood tied. And a lot of times, right, you'll hear some people will say, oh, it's the families. All right, and then when you ask them, what families you talking about? Oh, it's the families that's controlling it. What families are you talking about? Oh, the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and the Fords. And how were they doing all this? Because it's blood relations, it's blood tie. So you have to do your own family's genealogy. Islam. That's the only way that you're going to be able to show and prove that you truly have some stake in the game. What do I mean by that? Your family, all of our families that are from here, because most of us are from here. Most of us are from here. Most of us ain't got an ancestor from the continent that they call Africa. And mind you, remember, Africa back in the 1500s ain't even the same size it is today.
We're not Africans?
No, sir. Islam. I ain't no African.
I thought we were the descendants of Africans.
No, that's not what the prophet said.
The
prophet said that it's so much wisdom to be learned for the descendants of Africa. He never said that we was descendants of Africa. Matter of fact, he said we were descendants of the ancient Moabites.
Islam.
who inhabited the northwestern, southwestern shores of Africa. Inhabit is not the same thing as being from.
Say it again. Say it again.
Inhabit is
That's
not
right.
the same thing as being from. This is why when you read, you have to literally dissect every word you read before you go to the next word, because you're going to miss it. It happens so quick because that's the way that the educational system, right? That's how they taught us how to read. They taught us how to read out of context. Ain't that something?
That's right.
They purposely taught us how to read
So they can hide
and
it.
write out of context. So when they even taught us about slavery, right? It wasn't until the 70s when Roots came out that most of our people even heard anything about Africa. You go and you ask your grandmothers and your grandfathers and you ask your great-grandparents and you start talking to the older people in your family and you ask them about us being slaves and being enslaved, all of them, they'll tell you the same story. We weren't no slaves. I promise y'all, it was the younger. I'm telling y'all, my grandmother, my
Come on,
father's
wake us
mother,
up. Wake us up.
my father's mother was born and raised in Paris Island, called it Gullah Island in South Carolina. And it was the young ones who kept saying this rumor that my grandmother grew up as a slave. She was a slave. It took me up into my adult age, some years ago, as I'm looking at her birthday, and I realized, hold on, she was born after slavery. Who in the family started this rumor? How is it that my grandmother was a slave when she was a child and slavery was already abolished in 1865? My grandmother was born in the early 1900s. So make it make sense. Make it make sense. Out of ignorance, the educational system purposely taught us how to read and write out of context. Islam. Now, what the true story was my grandmother, when she was growing, she was a child, she was a member of a family of sharecroppers. Her parents were sharecroppers. And they owned their own land. They wasn't slaves. How about that? Islam. So chapter 11 really helps me to gauge if I am developing in my growth or if I'm just stuck. Because a lot of times we could get stuck in our thought. We can get stuck in our movement. Islam. We can get stuck in our vibration and our energy. Because we are creatures of loving to be comfortable. Like being comfortable is a loving feeling to be comfortable. Islam, when you start to get out of comfort, it don't feel too good. The feeling is not good, but it's necessary. Islam?
That's right.
So I want to start in here. It says, Jesus and Barada together, they read the sacred books. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Governors, we can see it.
Islam, gratitude. I'm still Sheikahs.
Islam.
Islam. Among the Buddhist priests was one who said a lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Bharata Arabo. Together, Jesus and Bharata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets, read the Vedas and the Vesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, man is the marvel of the universe. He is a part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was bit of formless substance, and the modes of time, and then the protoplasm. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplasm evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. So what he's doing right now is Bharata is talking about how man became man. He's saying that all things in life tend upward, so man started off first in the modes of time. And then man evolved into protoplasm, and then he became worm, and then reptile, and bird, and beast, and then at last he reached the form of man. Mind you, at this point in time, he's Bharata. All right. Verse 7 says, now man himself is mine. So there was something that occurred for man to become mine. Man wasn't originally mine. So man went from man to being mine. And mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in fleshly form. And in the form, beast suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm or bird or beast or man. What he's saying is, thought be the cause of it all. So whatever man thinketh, so he is. And after man is man and perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life. So after man leaves here, he then performs or transmutes to higher forms of life, is what Bharata is saying. And Jesus said, Bharata Arabo, who taught you this? That mind, which is the man, may manifest in flesh or beast or bird or creeping thing. Bharata said, from times which man remembers not, our priests have told us so, and so we know. And Jesus said, enlighten Arabo. Are you a mastermind? And do not know that man knows not by being told? So he went from Bharata to Bharata Arabo to enlighten Arabo now, right? This is his transformation that he's going through. Islam?
Teach.
Verse 13 says, man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know. You simply guess. Regard not then what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages, masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know. Now the teacher is teaching Barada how to trace himself through the ages. Islam. So that he's no longer guessing, but he can actually go back where he is reminded. He doesn't have to go off of, well, you know, my teacher said, the grand governor said, my grand sheikh said, the prophet said, and that's where I'm at. I want to go past than just, well, the prophet said, and it is so. Because that's what we did when we was in the church. That's what we do when we in the masjid. Oh, well, you know, they said, and that's it.
Come on, wake us up.
You know how many brothers and sisters, when you begin to break down that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was given Koran from the angel Gabriel, and Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the angel, that he was divinely prepared and he didn't have to get his word, his instructions.
They don't understand that.
He didn't have to get his instructions from another angel. Come on, y'all. We got to wake up because we've been asleep for far too long. We all gone through the education, the public school educational system. Even if you went to private school, it's still the same format. You get a couple more, you know, classes that you don't get in public school. And it appears to seem like, you know, you're going to be ahead of the students that's in public school, but it's still the same programming. Islam. He said, time never was when man was not. That which begins will have an end. If man was not, the time will come where he will not exist. From Allah's own record book, we read the triune Allah breathed forth and stood 7 spirits before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Elohim. And these are they who in their boundless power created everything that is or was. These spirits of the triune Allah moved on the face of boundless space, and 7 others were. And every other had its form of life. These forms, y'all, we fill them out all the time, every day. We filling out all types of forms, giving it life. Islam, it has boundless forms. We choose how we're going to contract before coming here and while we're here. We choose. We make the decisions. Ain't no such thing as, oh, you know, the devil made me do it. Ain't no such thing as, oh, Shaitan is just always doing something. The true devil is within. That's why you got to know yourself and your Father God Allah. Because if you knew yourself and your Father God Allah, you already know, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go there because I know me. Because if I go there, then I know this is going to be the consequence. No matter how many people try to talk you into, oh, no, it ain't going to be like that. You know, we are here. We're going to make sure. No, I know me. I know me, and I know my Father God Allah, and I know that it's not enough of me that is going to submit to the will of the higher self. if I go there. Because I know that Allah is spirit man, manifested in human flesh. See, I know Allah ain't no spook God. See, I know Allah ain't somewhere up in the sky and I'm going to meet him one day. See, I know that each and every one of us make up a part of Allah.
There it is.
Islam.
Listen, Islam. That's right.
So I'm not going to go there. Because I know that the Allah in me ain't strong enough to overcome that. So I'm just going to leave that alone. Islam. Because these are the forms that I have created. These are the boundaries that I have put into these forms. These lessons are so easy, a child can understand what these lessons are saying. I know when we read it because we've been taught by the educational system to read out of context, to understand what we're reading out of context. But it's literally talking about forms. We create them all the time. We fill them out every day. We participate in all different types of forms. Islam, that's what our customs are, right? That's what we customize in the form. How about that? So it says, the forms of life were but the thought of Allah clothed in the substance of their ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplasm, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim. These planes with all their teeming thoughts of Allah are never seen by eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance too fine for fleshly eyes to see. And still, they constitute the soul of things. And with the eyes of soul, all creatures see these ether planes in all forms of life. Because all forms of life on every plane are thoughts of Allah. All creatures think, and every creature is possessed of will, and in its measure has the power to choose. We all got that power. And in their native planes, all creatures are supplied with nourishment from the ethers of their planes. And so it was with every living thing until the will became a sluggish will. And then the ethers of the protoplasm, the earth, the plant, the beast, the man began to vibrate very slow. So what happened, right? You started to get comfortable. We started to get comfortable. Our will became sluggish. You know how it is when you searching for a job and you hoping and you praying and you wishing and you doing all these things, filling out all these applications, you on all these interviews, and you keep saying, man, if I could just get a job here, I'm gonna work so hard, I'm gonna be so dedicated, I'm gonna give my all, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and you get to the job, and for a while, you know, you are doing everything you said you was gonna do, and then you get comfortable. Your will becomes sluggish because that ain't your will no more. It ain't the job. It's just that that's not your will any longer. And no matter how much everything seems to go, dang, I'm going through this, through the job, this opposition is coming against me, you know, with this job, my children aren't doing what they're supposed to do while I'm working. It just, everything seems to not be right anymore with this job. But I need it because I got to be able to take care of me and my family. But because we became comfortable and our will we don't want to leave. Even though everything in us is saying, I need to leave. In order for me to go to the next level in life, it's my duty to do this for me. Islam. But we don't want to leave. We want to keep doing them. We want to keep going and going, and like the Energizer Bunny, going and going and going and going. Woo! That sluggish will. That sluggish will, you can't look at the sluggish will as a bad thing. The sluggish will actually is a reminder. Hey, wake up. I'm trying to get your attention. It's time for you to move on. Islam, can you hear me?
Teach that lesson.
Greetings. Are you
I can hear
not
clearly.
getting it?
I can hear clearly.
It's time for us to move on. But I like it here. You know, I'm gonna miss everybody, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with. But the will, the sluggish will, and you know, sometimes it's so bad before you go somewhere, right? Sometimes it's so bad that you begin to feel sick. It's not. I want Dr. A. Kyle, what is that? What is it called when you know that your will is so sluggish and your will is trying to get your attention, you're not paying it any attention, that it will literally make you sick right before you get there?
It's called psychosomatic comfort, and it's a psychosomatic disorder. So it's not actually happening in your mind. I mean, it's not actually happening that you're physically sick. You are so extremely comfortable in your current condition that you would rather ride the hamster wheel than glide into the future. So your mind begins to speak to you. It's the exact same thing. You've heard stories. Now, usually you don't hear this about Asiatic women, but you hear it about pale-skinned European women who desperately want to be pregnant, to the point that they will tell people that they're pregnant, and their breast will even begin to lactate milk, because that shows you how strong the mind is. And so a lot of times our will is so strong that we allow our will to be stronger than the will of Allah. So our psychosomatics keeps us where we are, and we are just like that pale-skinned European woman believed that she was pregnant. She was just hell-bent on being pregnant. Many of us are hell-bent on following our will, and my will be done, my will be done. So it is a psychosomatic comfort, and it literally keeps us from being able to hear and fulfill the will of Allah, because we are psychosomatically attached to our will. And that's what makes her naturally lactate, because her brain is so attached to her will, but there's nothing in her womb. Islam, I yield.
Islam.
Islam. See, y'all
That's
thought
that
I was just
fire.
making up stuff, so I had to bring the doctor on. See, because I'm not the doctor. Islam. But I had to bring the doctor on to verify, because I'm not making nothing up. Islam.
You're not making
it ain't my will. Islam. Woo!
She took the head off of that thing. Praise Allah. Islam.
Praise Allah. Islam. So what are the things that what are some of the things that we can do to get out of our way so that our will can just easily glide and no longer be sluggish, Doctor?
Islam, the first thing we got to do, see, everything we learned in church wasn't a lie. And they sang a song in church that said, I'll just stand still until your will is clear to me. I'm gonna say it again. The song said, I'll just stand still until your will is clear to me. How do I get clarity on the will of Allah? I stop trying to push my personal agenda. I sit down in meditation and I say, Allah, I'm here. Tell me what I need to know. Many a times we are so self-led that we don't care what the will of Allah is. Because I already got my mind made up what I want to do. And I don't want to ask what the will of Allah is because his will may interrupt what I already decided I want to do. And so, Allah, if I don't ask, you won't tell. But where we get confused is that when we don't ask, we are still responsible for fulfilling the will of Allah. Ignorance of the will of Allah does not excuse our fulfillment of the will of Allah. And we forget that Allah is the greatest gangster ever. So let's just use my brother U.S.A. as an example. He'll be like, Ernest, listen, beloved, I got this work for you to do. Now, I've been trying to get a message through to you, but it seems that you don't want to hear what I got to say. So, my beloved, let me explain to you. It's not personal, it's business. My beloved, we can do this voluntarily or involuntarily. Ernest, is totally up to you, but we gonna get this done. That is the way Allah works. The mafia has nothing on Allah.
Islam.
So, you can roll up in there if you want to. I didn't know, Allah, what you wanted me to do. And Allah said, well, did you have the opportunity, the tools, and the skill set to sit before me and ask? Or had you already decided what you wanted to do? And so what you see, it's the same thing as when we see somebody that we like. And so we decide we're going to date them because we like what we see. And we have not asked Allah because Allah may tell me something contrary. And my eyes have seen the glory. So I want what I want. And I'm not interested in Allah messing up my plans. But Mr. Allah, what I'd like you to do is to bless what I said I want. This is what the elders used to say when they would say, oh, so you want God to bless your mess. And it's the exact same thing when we don't take the time to prioritize Allah. We're saying, I already know what I want to do. I'm not asking you nothing. I'm going to pencil you in whenever I have time because I don't want you to mess it up. Just bless what I want. And I blame church for this because church teaches us how to hustle God. That's what we learn. You come in, you pay your blood money, which is your tithe, and that's supposed to protect your other money. So I'm going to pay you off. I'm going to break you off just a little bit of money, right? And so you go ahead and you protect my money, Mr. God. I'm not really interested in a relationship with you, not trying to do all that other stuff, but I'm going to pay you off my little 10% and you make sure my money stays straight. You hear? So this is the way that we deal with the divine. And then, okay, God, I'm going to make you this set of promises. Bam. I want you to do this for me. And I'm going to promise you, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to do all the things that you want. Okay. And so then I get what I want. God, you know my heart. I'm busy. I prayed for a husband and you brought him. So I'm busy. I got to go submit. And so we learn to hustle the creator. But then we get angry when people use us. And then those things that we make idols because we ask the creator for them, he gives them to us as a test. Then we begin to worship the creation more than the creator. And see, when we look at that scripture, it said, and denying the truth of the creator, they began to worship the creation more than the creator. And this is the way that we go into a place of reprobation, because we get so used to pushing our agenda and I want to do it my way. And I really don't want anybody to mess it up. I got my mindset. I want to do what I want to do the way I want to do it. Mr. God, go over there, get out my face, get out the way, but just protect me from anything happening. So let me use you at my convenience, but don't tell me what I want to do, what you want me to do. Not really interested in your leadership. I just want what I want from you, when I want it, and how I want it. Islam, are you?
Islam.
Islam. Got me in here in a corner with my arms folded. Just
Praise Allah for that lesson.
woo. Islam.
I hope you Moors is listening and getting fed. Islam.
Islam.
Islam, whoever that's for. Because I wasn't even planning none of this. And this is the will of Allah. This ain't me. Islam. Because I hadn't even talked to Dr. Akael today. Islam. So yeah, we didn't plan this out. For those who, oh yeah, they talk all the time. They plan it. No. This is definitely the will of Allah. Woo! That sluggish will, get out your own way. It said the ethers all became more dense, and all the creatures of these plains were clothed with coarser garbs of flesh, which men can see, and thus this coarse manifest, which men call physical appearance. And this is what is called the fall of man. But man fell not alone, for protoplasts and earth and plant and beasts were all included in the fall. The angels and the cherubim fell not. Their wills were ever strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with the law. Now, when the ether reached the rate of atmosphere, and all the creatures of these planes must get their food from atmosphere, the conflict came. The war came. This is a dog-eat-dog world. It said, and that which the finite man called survival of the beast, and became the law. It's survival of the fittest. That's law. Islam said the stronger ate the bodies of the weaker manifest. And here is where the carnal law of evolution had its rise. And now man in his utter shamelessness strikes down and eats the beast. The beast consumes the plant. The plant thrives on the earth. The earth absorbs the protoplasts. And yonder kingdom of the soul, this carnal evolution, is not known. And the great work of masterminds is to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to his estate that he has lost when he again will live upon the ethers of his native plane. The thoughts of Allah change not, the manifest of life on every plane unfolded into perfection of their kind. And as the thought of Allah can never die, there is no death to any being of the seven ethers, of the seven spirits of the triune Allah. And so an earth is never plant or beast or bird or creeping thing. It's never man. And man is not, it cannot be a beast or a bird or creeping thing. Islam. The time will come when all these seven manifests will be absorbed. Man and beast and plant and earth and protoblast will be redeemed. Barada was amazed. The wisdom of the Jewish sage was a revelation unto him. Now, Vidyapati, wisest of the Indian sages, chief of temple, Katvistu, heard Bharata speak to Jesus of the origin of man and heard the answer of the Hebrew prophet. And he said, your priests of Katvistu hear me speak. We stand today upon a crest of time. 7 times ago, a master soul was born who gave a glorious light to man. And now a master sage stands here in the temple Kapavistu. The Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom deified. He brings to us a knowledge of the secret things of Allah. And all the world will hear his words, will heed his words, and glorify his name. You priests of the temple, Kapavistu, stay, be still and listen when he speaks. He is the living oracle of Allah. And all the priests gave thanks and praised the Buddha of enlightenment. Islam. Yeah, for those who don't know, that's another name for Jesus, the Buddha of enlightenment.
Drop that science.
Islam. So as we are working here in chapter 11, we want to study on us as masterminds tracing ourselves back. Islam.
Islam.
That's the major part of what's hindering us to be able to move forward. That we have no direction, no true direction to trace ourselves back. Each and every one of us have to do it for ourselves. We can't group think it together. That's not the way it works.
Islam.
Know thyself and thy Father God Allah. Islam. So we're going to go into gratitude again, Dr. A. Kyer Ill, for dropping that. Islam. We want to go into finding these snakes and who they are. Right? So I'm going to share a new screen here. This is Genesis chapter 14. Genesis chapter 14. And I'm gonna go down here to verse 11. Verse 14 and 14. Pardon me. It said, and when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued him unto Dan. Now, I want everyone to remember that this is the first time that you hear of Dan in the Bible. Now, we were taught that Dan wasn't heard of until the tribes of Israel, right? Or the tribes of Yaqub, Islam.
Oh, all right now.
But for some reason, we hear of Dan before that time. So just remember that Dan has been around for some time. Dan was here before the tribes, Islam.
No.
So I want to go here to, let's see. I want to pull up the 1611 King James Version Bible, right? So we can see really who these snakes are. Oh, here we go. So we see Dan right here. And it says Genesis 30, verse 6. And the symbol for Dan is a snake, also known as a dragon. Islam. That's who Dan is. You always see Dan by his symbol. You will always see Dan by his symbol. See, they told us that Dan didn't appear until Genesis chapter 30, verse 6, right? And it says, and Rachel said, God have judged me and have also heard my voice and have given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan, right? But we also see Dan again in Genesis chapter 14, but we also see Dan before then. Anyone know where else we see Dan before Genesis chapter 14?
Well, if you're saying that Dan is symbolized by the snake or the serpent, then I would say going back to Genesis in the, I don't know exact chapter, but when we talk about Adam and Eve in the garden.
Come on now. We got a Bible thumper in here. Islam. Signs and symbol for the conscious mind, Morris. See that we see Dan all the way in the beginning. What was Dan doing when he was introduced to us all?
Deceiving.
Deceiving. Woo! Ain't nothing changed. Oh my goodness.
I said deceiving Eve though.
Deceiving Eve?
Yeah, it's not.
You sure it was deceiving Eve? Because where was Adam when Eve was being so easily deceived?
Well, we are led to believe that he was nowhere around, and then that Eve came and brought him, to give him, the instructions or to share with him the quote unquote fruit. But he was right there with her at the whole time. So
that's what it sounded
right.
like. He was by his wife's side.
He was right at the party with her.
Right.
He was right there at the Beyonce concert, right with her. He was right there, front row. They had VIP tickets. He was right there. He wasn't. No, he was just somewhere up. No.
Islam, that's why I said it.
Yeah, he was right there, right along with her, willfully participating. Islam. So here it is. We see Dan, and Dan very early on. I mean, we learned the story as children, right? That the snake or Satan, right? Because we got so many names for him, right? Satan, they didn't name them Beelzebub, they didn't give them all types of different names. Islam. So here it is. We have let's go to it. Genesis chapter 1. Here it is, Genesis chapter 1. I think it's 2 where we start to see Satan come up. Let's see.
That's the 3 Adamites.
These are the post. These are the post Jobites. You got to remember, Job and his family came before Adam and Eve. Islam. Here it is. Now the serpent or the snake. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God hath made. And he said unto the woman, Ye have God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, And God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. But you recall, before this, man was already made in the likeness and the image, right? So then why would you dumb yourself down from being made in the likeness and the image to being as gods? As gods. You see how he played, you see how the serpent played them? You shall be as God. See, this is that public school education right here. That's the education that the woman was getting. Because if you would have came to me and you would have said this to me, I would have been like, what? Who man's is this? Who sent him? I'm already made in the likeness and image. Like, why would I want to be as gods when I was already made like that? Like, why would I want to be something that I'm like devaluing myself? Islam?
I have a question.
Go ahead, sister.
There are three references in the chat that don't have sources. So the first one shows history.com, and that's the February 22nd of 2023. But for the March 14th, 2021, August 16th, 2018, and March 12th, 2018, I need to have the source. Grand Governor posted them, and I want to be able to repost them, but I need the source from which he pulled them. The question is, why were black snakes driven out of Ireland? And the date is March 14th, 2021, but I need the source.
Islam, praises be to Allah, honors to his prophet. When I said I had Googled some information about the snakes in Ireland, I just Googled all that information. All that came directly from Google.
Right, what's the source on Google?
I would have to go back in my phone. I'm actually not around my phone now.
Okay.
And I can send you the source. But the source is the headline that you type in.
Okay.
That's going to come back to you. That's going to be the reference. It's going to go right to that.
Okay, because thank you, because as we are really just tightening everything up, we want to not only empower everybody, but we also want to give them sources, because when they turn around and they tell people this, then we need to be able to give them where we got it from, so that we've got the supporting evidence. Islam, because this really helps. This information really, really helps. And I'm going to be reposting it. So I'll go back and I'll pull the actual links so we can put the links in the chat. But it definitely helps. I love the fact that you always do that. And usually you put, usually you're doing it out of a book, and you usually put the source. So we definitely want to be able to do that. Because again, I mean, we're the most thorough temple anyway. We got a tremendous accolade from Supreme Grand Sheikh Pratha Il. We were called the intellectual temple. So, you know, we can't disappoint. We got to come with it because this is what we do. Islam, I yield.
Islam, indeed. Yes, we were called the temple that reads and knows all the books.
The temple that reads and knows all the books. Pardon.
Reads and knows.
And knows all the books.
All the books.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that's an honor.
Came from National Geographic. Perfect. So I'm getting ready to put that in there right now. Excellent. And that way we also have the excellent information that the Grand Governor gave us. And then we got the whole article, and the article is even more damning. So anybody that try to come for you, you can slay them. You know, we are instructed to have an answer for every man as to the hope that lies within us, or we got more than an answer. Because anytime they turn around and they tell on themselves, because National Geographic is not us. So that's them making it plain. No, wasn't no snakes over there. So it's a beautiful thing when truth doesn't change or pass away, whenever the deceiver begins to start to tell the truth on themselves. Islam, I yield.
Islam, gratitude. Indeed. Thank you again for the sources. It says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food. So previously, the woman didn't even see the tree was good for food. But now her will is being changed. And when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And this is all because the serpent told her so. That's because the serpent, they're very, very old. They're ancient. You know, they didn't just start in Genesis chapter 30 or Genesis chapter 14. Now we know that previously in the past, we've learned that America is the true old world. America is the true old world. So that means every creature was here first. Then we went out. Especially after what's called the Great Cataclysm, or the Great Deluge, or the Great Flood. It started here, and then as the land would dry up, we would go out and create kingdoms. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali said it in, see, the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Right, in chapter 45. All right, chapter 45, Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. It says the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. See? It's right here. His father Ham and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the father and the son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit Northwest Africa, they were the founders. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. With their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands, before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation, not slave ships. It was not used for slave. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human family, there is no Negro, Black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today, without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from his descendant nature of his forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Islam. So here it is, we see Prophet Noble Drew Ali breaking down the Canaanites, right? And their brethren, the Hittites and the Amorites. This is a confederation, Islam. And they're all leaving the land of Canaan and going out to create and establish new kingdoms for the empire, because Canaan is the empire. Today's modern term for Canaan is the Moroccan Empire, right? This is before the Frenchmen came. It's way before the Frenchmen came. So if you're looking for the kingdom of Morocco today and the Frenchmen to save you in any of those treaties to save you, you lost already. Islam. You lost already. it's funny because here it is. In today's time, we have Moorish Americans, or Moors, that's what they call themselves. Moors who will tell you that they are working on reestablishing these Moroccan treaties that have nothing to do with us as the ancient Moabites, who once was a part of this confederacy with the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites. You really have Moors that's participating in teaching this. And what's funny to me is if the temple was to do this, we would be called agents, they would say, oh, I'm trying to put us back into slavery. I mean, all type, if the temple's doing this, I'm just like, wow. Moors can do and say anything as long as not the temple that's doing it and saying it. Because once the Moorish Temple of America does it and says it, it's just, you know, so much backlash. Islam, Sister Shamir, you have your hand raised.
Islam, gratitude. Good evening. I have a question in regards to the treaty. And there is tons of them, and I'm only slightly familiar with those that have been taught here in the temple. So what about certain treaties is getting Moore's minds caught up in the aspect that that's what is supposed to be used, or what's in it that they would identify as themselves?
Islam. Honestly, I have no idea. Other than it saying that Morocco was the first empire to recognize the United States of America. And it created a trade treaty. Because that's what it is. It's a trade treaty. And that the Sultan of Morocco.
Islam, you hit it on the head. That's what usually everyone shares or teach when they're teaching about the treaty, namely friendship treaty. Mm-hmm. They always go into that same old rhetoric is what I call. No disrespect to anyone.
Islam. Yeah, because if you are a subject of the Sultan, then and you was caught up over here, the Sultan had agreements with the United States of America to let you go. Right, let you go. You got to remember that it's not the original United States of America at this time. Because the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is 1787. right, 1787, I believe, is the first, or is it eight? When is, somebody Google it for me real quick. When was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship? 1836, pardon me. 1836 was the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, but before that, that's what it was. 1786, you had other treaties that started in 1786, which were Barbary treaties. And these treaties was between what was called the Moroccan Empire at that time. But again, this is not the ancient Moroccan Empire, the ancient Canaanites and Hittites and Amorites and Moabites. This ain't even, this is not that same empire. But again, because of the public school education system, for a lot of us, when we think of the 1700s, we think that's a long time ago. We literally think that that was a real long time ago. But here it is, we can go further back in time where we have family records that predate 1786. So the United States of America first received its charter to, well, that's before it received its charter, which is the Constitution. It set up its union, its workers' union, right, which was a farmers' union, which is the Articles of Association. That's the farmers' union. Then off of the Articles of Association, they declared their independence because now they can feed themselves. See, you can't be independent if some other country, some other nation is feeding. Remember back in chapter 11, it's talking about, you know, us now, it being law. It's now law that one species overtakes another species. So as a species, as a nation, you can't say that you are independent and free from another nation if you can't feed yourself. So we gave them an opportunity to do just that off of the biblical principle that's in Genesis chapter 2, starting at verse 4. Islam, where the Lord thy God, which is the landlord, gave them or granted them parcels of land to be able to feed themselves. Islam. So that's the only thing that I can really see, Sister Shamira, when it comes to these Barbary treaties, these Moroccan treaties. Because to me, that's the main issues, is these treaties. And for some reason, Moors continue to utilize them and participate. There is a whole entire, and I'm going to be getting into this after we finish up with this series, but there was a whole entire scheme that went on with the Sultans over there and the Anglo-Saxons to subdue us and take over us over here. But Moors so badly want to be under these Anglo, Moroccan, Franco treaties that do nothing but harm. Islam, so I hope that answers your question.
Gratitude.
Islam. I feel like Moors just need to go further back in years to study.
What do you mean it does harm?
Well, if I made up a plan to subdue you and take over you without you being aware, then that's going to do me harm. You talking about taking over me, making me a slave, taking and stealing my resources. Because that's what it's at the end of the day, it's always been about resources. And there's one resource that you could only get from here. Woo! Couldn't be duplicated anywhere else. Telling y'all, we had to drop. When you talk about the plug, it was the plug. We were the plug. You hear me? Still the plug. Still to this day, the plug. That's why everybody in the world wants to be here. This is why they have taught us that we are from this small little plot of land. Africa back in the 1500s was no bigger than the state of Connecticut today. Matter of fact, let me pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up for y'all so y'all can see.
Somebody's gonna call you out on. Somebody gonna call you out.
See, because I didn't make this up. This is Princeton University. This is the 1554 map, right? Evolution of the map of Africa. The evolution of the map of Africa. So here's Africa right here. Can y'all see it?
Let them argue with that.
This is Africa.
Right. Come on with it. Receipts.
The whole landmass was not called Africa. This little piece of area right here is called Africa. This little piece of land, this parcel of land right here was Africa. Let me circle it for y'all so y'all can see it. Y'all see it? That's all Africa. This is only part of Africa. This is the 1500s. Islam.
Oh.
So yeah, that's all Africa. Nothing more, nothing less. And again, as I said, see, most of us ain't got an African nowhere in our family. Here's slavevoyages.org. Right, let's look at this transatlantic slave trade. I had so many people ask me about this the other day when I put it up on Facebook. Here it is. It said that we've been enslaved since 1619, right? We was Africans enslaved since 1619. Some 20 and odd Negroes, slaves, came over here from Africa. Here it is. It wasn't until 1626 to 1650, it was only 824. $824 passengers who came to the U.S.A. What about the 1619 project? What about 1619 when they came to the St. James River? They came. I'm telling you, they came. We want our reparations and we want our 40 acres and a mule. We want it now. Because they've been enslaving us. Okay. You're saying, well, that says estimates. All right, so let's go into it. See, because I can't make this up. Here, start at 1514. We go to 1619. Got any more questions while I'm pulling this up? Any comments?
Yeah, Secret Governance. Were you going to elaborate a little more? Because I don't want to go too far while you haven't reached a certain plateau. Were you going to elaborate on the serpent a little more?
Yeah, I'm going more to the snakes.
Islam.
Islam. It's going to be 2 more weeks of this going into the serpents.
Okay, well, I was about to go in too soon then, so I'll just hold
yeah,
fast.
yeah. So yeah, we just setting it up.
Islam.
Islam. I hate Scotty. Scotty, we just setting it up. We just setting it up. So here we are, 1619, right? No USA, none. 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 Jamaica, but no, no USA. Let's go to the next page. None. Right? Principal place where captives were purchased. Principal place where captives landed. None. Not a one. None in the USA. Go to the next page. Same thing. Go to the next page. Here it is, 1619 ends. And still none. Not one. So what is this nonsense of these 20 and odd Negroes?
Teach.
Here it is. We in 1619. I mean, you started off at 1514, and we still ain't got one, not one ship. Not one ship. From Africa to United States of America. Not one. We ain't got one ship whatsoever from Africa to the United States of America.
No, not one. No, not one.
But we all descendants of African slaves. Make it make sense. I mean, it just don't add up. Islam. So here we go. I want to go to, and any questions on the African slaves? Anyone? All right, we're going to move on. Here's the book titled Royal Genealogies, or the Genealogical Table. All right, and this is page 30. This is the 12 patriarchs of Israel from Jacob's flight to Haran to the Exodus of Moses during 268 years. All right, and we see Dan again. We see Dan again. It says Dan, born at Haran, in 10 months after Judah, age at the descent 48 and 6 months, had been married and had then one son. Right? That's what it says about Dan. I'm gonna put this book in, I think I already got it in Book Nook. I'll look. If it's not in the Book Nook, I'll make sure I put it in the Book Nook for you all. And now let's go to the Erdman's Dictionary by David Noel Friedman. The Erdman's Dictionary by David Noel Friedman. It says Dan, the fifth son of Yaqub, and his first of two with Bilhah, Rachel's maid servant. Genesis 30, verse 6. We already read that, remember? The close relationship between Dan and his brother Naphtali is also a matter of geographic proximity. The tribes occupied adjacent areas of the camp during the Exodus march and neighboring territories in the kingdom of Israel. Initially, the Danites attempted to settle in the south and the vicinity of Zorah and Eshtaol. This attempt failed in a region crowded with indigenous who? Indigenous who? Amorites. That's because these Danites from the tribe of Dan ain't the original Danites. Because the original Danites are already in a confederacy with the indigenous Amorites.
Uh-oh.
See, the Danites been hijacked. It said the Danites have been hijacked. Says immigrant Philistines and Israelite groups such as Judites and Ephraimites. As a result, the Danites migrated during the period of the judges to the extreme north. To the extreme north. 5 Danite spies set out, consulting a Levite priest in Mount Ephraim along the way, and discovered Laish, a city both rich in resources and vulnerable for attack. Didn't I tell y'all it's always been about the resources? It's always about our resources. So we're going to ask the Levite priests, right? Because remember, it was the Levites during the time of Moses that Moses had to use their authority Moses had to use the Levites' authority. Check this out now. Moses had to use the Levites' authority to turn the staff into a what? Serpent, right?
Right.
And who authority did he specifically use? Whose staff was it?
Was it Aaron?
It was Aaron's staff.
Uh-huh.
It was Aaron's staff. And Aaron's staff turned into a what?
Snake.
Turned into a serpent.
And that's why they use it on the caduceus.
It's on. Turned into a serpent. Now remember, previously, when he was practicing, right? The Lord God told him to put out his staff. And his staff turned into a serpent, right?
Right.
But when he was in front of the Pharaoh, see, this is how you know who has the authority to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in front of the Pharaoh, he couldn't use his staff.
And in front of the Pharaoh, actually the Pharaoh's people, they
Come
turned
on now.
into a snake as well.
Come on now.
Notice when you look at the caduceus, you've got both snakes on there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Moses' snake as well as Aaron's snake.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is that representing? That's representing the higher and lower self.
Islam. Because the staff that Moses had, he wasn't using his own authority.
Exactly.
He couldn't turn the staff.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, he couldn't turn the staff into a serpent.
Right.
Because he's not originally a part of the true Danites.
Right.
He don't have that authority. The Lord God that's over him, the one that told him when he asked him, who do I say that you are? And he said, tell them that I am, that I am. the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He said, this is my name, and this will be forever my name. He said his name is I am that I am. See, this was I am that I am. The Lord, who was the Lord God. He had the authority of the serpent. The serpent in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, had the authority of utilizing the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the serpent.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So was the serpent in the garden truly evil?
Come on now.
Islam.
Not at all. See, what the reason it had to be portrayed as evil is because you can't make Egypt evil and then the snake good, because out of the nemesis crown that all of the pharaohs wore was the snake. That is what was coming out of his first eye. And that was an indication that wisdom was coming out of his first eye. Who was feeding that wisdom? The same person that was, or the same entity that said it in Psalms, in Proverbs, in Ecclesiastes, and in the Song of Solomon. It was Sophia. It was the spirit of wisdom. And that was always an older woman. So the pharaohs would always have their wife, and their wives would go forth, and they would take the spirit of Amun-Ra, and they would go forth and they would make children, so that there would always be a legacy. And she gave wisdom to the degree that she could. So when you hear, and it's so funny, we think that a lot of things are brand new concepts, but we understand that there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
So whenever you began to look at the age of the queens, they were usually half the age of the pharaohs plus 7. Who else do we know that targets women that are half their age plus 7? The Nation of Gods and Earths, the Nation of Islam, and many of the brothers that follow Sunni Islam. So this isn't something new. This is something that was passed down.
That's right.
Because she would be able to continue to bear children. He would be older, so therefore he would be a little more established, but she would be able to listen to his wisdom and be awestruck by his wisdom, whereas a woman his age wouldn't necessarily be awestruck by his wisdom. So this is the reason they continue to marry women that were half their age. So they would always get an older woman to be able to siphon wisdom to them. And so you hear of the maiden and the crone. So the crone was that older woman that was usually an oracle. And so she would tell him, all right, beloved, this is a good time for you to attack and wage war. Don't wage war on these people. This is actually a misunderstanding. This is the day that you should go into this treaty, and this is the day that it will be great chaos. This is where the stars are aligned. So she, as an oracle, was able to then speak that wisdom into his first eye. So she never spoke to him. They communicated telepathically. So that's why you see that snake coming out of where his first eye would be within his nemesis crown. So that was an indication that let it be known, I am a man of authority, under authority, and I'm operating in wisdom.
Islam.
Islam. That's
Islam.
right. That's so right. So doctor, then what you're telling us then is that the serpent in Genesis symbolizes the Egyptian high priest that gave Adam and Eve certain teachings to unlock their pineal glands?
Half of that. So where the issue has come in is that that snake gave wisdom to Eve. And then Eve passed it to Adam. And that's where the challenge came in, because Adam was stiff-necked and did what he wanted to do, as opposed to sharing the knowledge with Eve so that Eve could get activated. Adam got stepped over, and the wisdom went to Eve. And then Eve offered to share the wisdom with Adam, because Adam was not in place and he wasn't able to receive. So that goes back to the parallel of what we spoke about earlier. When we are self-willed, when we're self-willed, we're out of alignment with the divine. So we can't get the channels. So he was too busy to sit and meditate. He could not be receptive and hear what the divine was saying. So the divine was like, oh, we can show you better than we can tell you. Please don't think you're the only one we can use. We'll skip over you and we'll go to the woman that we have made. That's what we'll do. Since you don't want to be the head of household, we can show you better than we can tell you. This is going to be done voluntarily or involuntarily, son. So now that which came out of you is offering you the wisdom that you were supposed to give to her. Why did you block receiving the wisdom? Were you afraid that if she became as smart as you, that she would need you? What was the problem? Why did we have to skip over you and give it to her? And so if the snake had been seen as positive, then you would have to see ancient Egypt as positive. And ancient Egypt has been painted to be totally idolatrous and totally against the true and living God. So you can't do it both ways. You have to demonize the snake, and then you got to make the woman scared of the snake all the rest of her life. So she's scared of the wisdom. So she only will listen to wisdom from a man now.
Come on now.
And that's what lets you know about the patriarchal slide-ins in the Bible. When you sit up and try to slide your agenda into the Bible, it ends up getting exposed when that wisdom that you tried to hide and cut off the head of comes right back, because it's in our DNA. So you can continue to lie to us, but as we connect with the spirit realm, then it comes back up in our DNA and it becomes a channel, because you can't hide the truth. The truth don't change or pass away. It simply gets passed down from generation to generation. Islam, I yield.
Islam. So then what you're telling us, pardon me, what you're telling us then is that all this time that the church has been painting these pictures of Adam and Eve with a serpent and her with an apple in her hand. Well, you exposing with that falsehood then, right?
See, this is the thing too. Never, even when you look in the Hebrew, does it say it was an apple. It said it was fruit. And what does fruit do? Fruit nourishes. So there was an opposition to the nourishment. That's where the challenge came in. There was a complete opposition to her receiving spiritual nourishment. So what do we have? We have the snake which is wisdom. We have the fruit. So that is wisdom, and that's nourishment, spiritual nourishment. So the whole objective was to keep her from activating her pineal. And so that's why when we go later in the scriptures, it talks about Mount Peniel. So then we got to go back to it because you tried to suppress it in the garden. So now it's got to be reactivated. So the sin, supposedly, that made him have to toil was the closing down of the wisdom and the refusal to receive it. So where did he have to go? Up to Mount Peniel. He had to raise his vibration to reactivate his pineal gland.
Come on now.
So when we keep on doing things that calcify our pineal gland, the only way it can get cleansed is for us to go upward. And you can't go upward if you're on a hamster wheel. You're stuck like Chuck. Islam, I yield.
Islam. Islam, gratitude. Brother Fat Neil, you had your hand raised.
Islam, in reference to the measure, my first thought was like whereas Adam and Eve left their first estate kind of like business, or whereas maybe they did take part of an evil, which is kind of like an amalgamation, which carries on to the whole way of life of the modern day world, for example, versus the old world, for example. And then I was also thinking in reference to Egypt. Of course, we have to remember that, of course, the cobra symbolizes the kundalini, or the spinal energy, and being coming to the front and forward, and therefore you're led by your inner self, Islam. But it also the family of there's lines of kings inside of Egypt, and only certain lines would bear the cobra alone, and then certain others would have not. And at the same time, there was also division in religion in ancient Egypt, and such goes to extremes, whereas where one was maybe worshiping the deity of life, for example. At the same time, in the background, there was many religions. So I just wanted to just point that out because, I was identifying with myself at the same time. The cobra and the kundalini, and then of course the idea of Adam and Eve being seduced by Dan, or maybe introduced into another way of life, and them taking part of it. Because literally it says knowing the knowledge of good and evil. I'm thinking to know evil, you'd have to practice evil. Otherwise, and then you're made in the image of your in likeness of our Father God Allah at the first. So now to take part of something else is like to practice something else. Islam, with that, I yield.
Islam, gratitude. So if we go back to our questionnaire, as you were saying about Adam and Eve, go back to our questionnaire, the 101s, key 57 says, who were Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers of the human family. Asiatics and Muslim. Where did they go? They went into Asia. What is the modern name given to their children? Asiatics. Islam.
Islam.
Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep the unbelievers away?
Angels.
Angels. What is the modern name for these angels? Asiatic. What is the shade of their skin? Olive. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels? Yes. We all have the same father and mother.
Father and mother.
Islam. Who is that writing on the screen? Someone is writing. Islam. One of y'all got your pen and pad out and you're writing. So I'm gonna have to erase with, okay.
Oh, wow.
Who is that? Which one of y'all did that?
I don't think
Islam. That was my screen jumping around.
Well,
I
yeah.
had to get it, man.
Everybody's jumping around. Mhm.
Oh, yes. And
That's
see,
all.
this is what's so deep right here. You know, and as many times as I've been through these one-on-ones, ooh, I can't wait till we get over here.
Ooh.
So, oh my goodness, Ruth, wow. So this is a reminder. This is why it's so egregious when we see Asiatic on Asiatic crime. And this is why we're told not to amalgamate. Because if we started, can you imagine if we start looking at each other as angels instead of as niggas?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you start seeing your brothers and sisters as angels, you treat them differently. When a man calls a woman his angel, he treats her differently.
Mm-hmm.
When he has other negative names for her, he treats her accordingly.
That's right.
So if I see you as an angel, I'm not trying to kill you. I call you an immortal like I call myself an immortal. I understand who you really are. And I realize that because you have been down here in the world, but not of the world, that sometimes the stink of the world drops off on you. But now it gets real deep when we get into 64, because it says,
that's right,
5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam. But wait a minute, when we go back up, let's go back up, if you don't mind, if we just kind of walk through these things.
We go back up.
It's kind of like now wait a minute now, because you said, so we started here. Were Adam and Eve. They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims. But then here it says, give 5 names that were given to the descendants of Adam and Eve. So if they're the mother and father, then
they birth. Come on now.
The descendants are also the Asiatics and Muslims. So when the prophet said that man has no devil to contend with except for himself.
That's right.
Which of the devils are you? Are you Lucifer, Satan,
come on now,
devil, dragon, or beast? Or is it that the more you continue to feed that joker, the lower you descend on the level, to the point that you make yourself a second dimensional being? So this is the way that you can be at 15 years old and go up and shoot another 15-year-old in their face and feel absolutely nothing. Because you have descended into these lower levels of the lower self. I mentioned before, it's 7 levels of the lower self and 7 levels of the higher self. And when you get to the highest of the high, that's when you get into the inner self. And it's the same thing as going into the Holy of Holies. Everybody didn't just roll up into the Holy of Holies. And if you weren't right going up in the Holy of Holies, they had to drag you out.
Teach.
And they heard the pomegranates hitting up against the bells because you were wearing the garment of the priest, but you wasn't showing up as a priest, and you lost your life accordingly.
Come on.
So that's why we got so many people spiritually dead walking around here, because they're trying to enter into the Holy of Holies and they haven't gone through the 7 levels.
Woo! Teach.
I yield.
Don't yield now.
Because see, we got to really understand. Oh, Lord. Oh,
Go,
my.
keep going. Keep
I
going.
just got a whole measure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, this
Go
is
ahead.
the thing most people don't know. Our prophet was what? An Egyptian adept.
Adept.
Okay. So that means he
Come
knew
on
the
now.
story
Woo.
of Sekhmet.
Woo.
Sekhmet was the daughter of Amun-Ra. And she was not a game. She was the goddess of healing, but she was not a game. So she had to have 3 aspects for anybody to deal with her. She was in her natural state where she ate off people's faces. Then she had her aspect of being Bast or Bastet. So you had a celebration of Sekhmet Bastet. And where the issue came in was that this was the difference between the roar and the purr. And these are the things that are robbed from ladies. They don't learn how to be ladies. They're taught to be women. Well, what is a woman? A woman is a man with a womb.
Come on now.
A woman is a man with a womb by definition. And so now what do we see these trans women that are pregnant? That's a man with a womb. That's it. And they implant a baby in that womb and they are fighting for the title woman.
Come on now.
And so when they try to program our sisters, they want us to be strong, independent Black women. You don't hear anybody saying, we want you to be a strong, independent Black lady. Not at all. Because we want you to compete with the quote unquote Black man, and y'all constantly going head to head.
That's right.
Wants to be the man and you want to be the man. And then both of y'all standing up trying to have a contest over who's going to be the man. Anything with 2 heads is a monster. And so when our sisters are programmed to operate in masculine energy so that they don't need a man, then what they're doing is alienating the masculine energy from them because, and now the brothers on here can tell me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, a straight Asiatic man is not attracted to or looking for another straight Asiatic man. Can any of my brothers back me on that?
I back you.
So if a straight Asiatic man is not looking for another straight Asiatic man, but you have been programmed to be a strong, independent Black woman. So strong. Okay, I have all the attributes of a man. I can do it my way. Anything a man can do, I can do myself. Independent. I don't need no man. I don't need God. All I need is me. Black, dead. Woman, man, what's attractive about that?
Woo!
What is attractive to a man about that? So they make us into an aberration, something that a man will not be attracted to.
Come on now.
And we are programmed. So then we put false hair in our head. Because now we making so much money, we can buy the bundles and we can live our fantasy life. We've got our fantasy hair and our fantasy eyelashes. Now we're buying a fantasy behind and fantasy breast. But a real man. All of this is by design, so that our brothers are so turned off because there's no worse smell, and brothers can tell you, there's no worse smell than a funky weave that wants to lay on your chest. And you sitting there like, oh my gosh. And then we got perfume sprayed on top of it. And then that head is right there on your chest and you having to breathe funky weave. And you can't say, well, thank you for the sex. can you please not lay your funky head on my chest? And you can't say it to her, because then you're not gonna get no more anymore, because she's insulted. Because she has been made to believe your hair is so unmanageable and so unattractive, and you can't make it in your corporate American job with your natural hair. So you must wear somebody else's hair in order to be accepted. But what we keep forgetting is that for years, over 150 years, Asiatic women have been getting degrees and working corporate jobs with their natural hair. And it was not an issue. But now, all of a sudden, my job won't accept me unless I put some hair that looks like a pale-skinned European's hair in my head.
Looking like a helmet.
Smelling like funk. But then we don't understand. All these things are made to alienate our men from us, because men are motivated by what they see. That is the first thing that they're attracted to. And when he looks and he can tell, well, that's a weave. Oh my goodness, we can't be in the shower together, because if I go to try to wash her face, her lace front is going to come up from the front.
Come on now,
So
stop
I can't take her to the beach. I can't do nothing with her. I can't even really make her sweat real good, so I can't break her back out properly. So where is this beneficial to me? I can't touch her hair. I can't do nothing. It's too many. It's jumping, hopscotching, trying to play Twizzlers. It's too much work. So let me go get something that I may not be attracted to, but that I don't have to jump through hoops and leap over walls, because you've decided you want to put on somebody else's hair and then wear somebody else's behind and have all of this extra done to you, when all I'm looking for is a natural woman. That's
and them BBLs stink too.
And they sag. Can you imagine buying a behind and then it begin to sag on? Wow. Now, it's one thing to have natural breasts that sag, but we're on a whole different level when you have bought. And do you understand, these women can't go to the bathroom? When you have a BBL, you have to sleep on your stomach, what is it, 3 to 6 weeks? You can't defecate. All of this to have a behind that you think a man is suddenly going to be attracted to. I have been in love with wonderful men, but I ain't never loved nobody to the point that I'm gonna have all that done? No. No. And you know what? Real talk, brothers, even if they are not well endowed at all, are not getting ready to go have surgery to be elongated. Because somebody's gonna put up with that. That's gonna be perfect for somebody. But they're not getting ready to do that. But we have been programmed to believe we need to do all of that in order to attract a man. If you got to do all that to attract a man, something's off with you. That's why they make you take a psych eval before you have a breast implant, a breast lift, or a BBL, a tummy tuck, anything, to make sure you're in your right mind before you make that type of decision. Same exam that they give to a person when they decide they want to have a trans surgery, or when they decide that they want to do a full sex change. You got to go through almost 8 months of a psych eval, because you can't change it back. Can't change it back. Once you have a BBL, you can't un-BBL. They can go through and they can take all that out. But if you can imagine going through all that pain just to have to turn around and go through being cut on to pull that mess out again. Where are we? This is what is called a godless nation. This is when I don't love me. I don't love the creator. I love the image that's in my head. I love the imaginary version of me. I want to bring forth the imaginary version of me. So I'm going to trust somebody to cut on my body to make me become the imaginary version of me so that I can get somebody who's attracted to the imaginary version of me. That's scary. But that's when I don't see me as an angel and I don't see you as an angel. So I have to create in me. So am I showing up as Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, or beast? Because what you think you attracted to, that ain't even mine. That ain't even mine. What you hollering and screaming about, I didn't come to the planet with. It's an aberration that I put on so that you'll find me attractive. Wow. Kind of deep. Islam, yo.
Islam. Praise Allah. Islam. They said them BBLs stink too.
I mean, think about it. You can't defecate because you can't sit on it. You can't apply no kind of pressure. So, yeah, even on that flight home, you are sitting on your knees flying home. So everybody on the plane know that you've had this done. What's wrong with us? Can you imagine if we invested the amount of money we spend in bundles? If we invested that kind of money, how many properties we could buy? And we buying bundles every 3 to 4 weeks. 2, 3, sometimes 4 bundles of hair at $60, $70 each for the good stuff. Wow. And then we turning around and paying somebody to put this in our head. And we can't really fully wash our face because we got the lace front. So we have glue on our skin and we're letting somebody put glue in our eyes in order to enhance our eyelashes. All of this to attract the attention of a man when grandmama used to put on darn near a sack and she pushed out 10 and 20 children and
Come on now.
a day and granddaddy was happy to work 2 jobs.
Listen.
And she ain't have not one fake eyelash nowhere. But that grandmama gown did it for granddaddy.
Woo!
Listen, I tell these sisters all the time, I ain't met one brother who said, boy, she sure would be fine if she just had another 1.5 inches of eyelashes. Or anything of the sort. Or
oh my goodness. Wow. We gonna we about to tie it up.
Oh no, we can't tie it up. Oh no.
Oh yeah, after we finish this part right here, we're gonna finish this for the night, and then we're gonna start back up next Wednesday, inshallah.
Oh, wow.
So it says 5 Danite spies set out, consulting a Levite priest in Mount Ephraim. Along the way and discovered Laush, a city both rich in resources and vulnerable to attack. A war party of 600 warriors soon followed and took the city, which they renamed in honor of their tribal ancestor. The Danites forced the Levite priest to accompany them. He founded the sanctuary at Dan. The Danite territory was largely confined to the single urban center. Possibly some Danites remained in the south, the core of which Solomon's second administrative district may have preserved. In many aspects, the Danites are unusual. They apparently did not have many clans. Only one is listed, Numbers 26, 42 to 43. And sometimes they are referred to as a clan rather than a tribe. The Danites were the only tribe who failed to hold or receive a tribal allotment. They are criticized in the Song of Deborah for failing to join the Israelite coalition, the Israelite confederacy against the Canaanites. The best known Danite, Samson, was the most uncharacteristic of the judges. The tribal blessing in Genesis 49:17, Dan shall be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path, may reflect a reputation for violence. Nothing about the Danite conquest of belies such a reputation. Jacob's deathbed words about Dan. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Have an enigmatic quality and have left some wondering whether the Danites lacked full tribal status at some point. Another question about the Danites is their relationship to other ethnic groups with similar names migrating in the region near the end of the second millennium. Greek records name the Danois. Phoenician records the Denim. The Egyptian, the Deni, and Danua. All may be linked. The evidence is inconclusive. The Galilean tribes fell to Tiglath. Was that Tiglath-Pileser the third Assyrian army in 732 BCE? And many Danites were among the exiles forced to resettle in Assyria. The remaining northern tribes went into exile when Samaria fell a decade later. The Danites' migrations probably ended in the districts of Assyria. And then it goes into Dan the place, a city in northern Galilee in the Huel Valley at the southwestern foot of Mount Hermon, one of the springs which serves as a source of the Jordan River issues from under Tel El, Quadi, the site of the ancient city, a major north-south road connecting the Syrian city of Katina with the Galilean city of Hazor, passed just west of Dan. Second millennium Mesopotamian and Egyptian records mention the city of Laush, also known as Lion. Remember that, Moors, write that down in your notes. The city's name before its conquest by the Danites, who renamed it after their ancestor. Judges 18 tells the founding of the city in its sanctuary. The Danite conquerors brought with them a Levitical priest in cultic paraphernalia. A priesthood which traced its roots to Moses served at the Danite shrine after the split of the monarchy. The Israelite king Jeroboam made the shrine of Dan, along with Bethel, one of the two sanctuaries for the northern kingdom. Amos condemned these shrines, in which Jeroboam installed images of bull calves. Dan was conquered by Ben-Hadad of Aram. This underscores the perennial threat Syria posed to Dan, which was much closer to Damascus than to Samaria, much less Jerusalem. Dan remained Israelite until 732, when Tiglath-Pileser III, Paul, ended the Israelite era at Dan with his conquest of the Galilee and subsequent exile of many of its inhabitants. There is archaeological evidence for settlement at the site through the Roman period. Fragments A and B of the Aramaic Tel Dan inscription, which contains perhaps the only extra biblical reference to the house of David. Tel Dan Excavations, Hebrew Union College. As a frontier post, Dan was memorialized in the common phrase from Dan to Beersheba, which marked respectively the northern and southern limits of Israel. Excavations at Tel Dan, led by Avram Baran, have uncovered remains of the Israelite sacred precinct and a 9th century Aramaic inscription which mentions the house of David, the sole extinct extra biblical reference to King David. Islam, I'm gonna put this dictionary in the book nook as well, so you all can have.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Islam, gratitude. Next week when we come back, we'll be going back into more of uncovering the serpents, the snakes who were driven out of Ireland. Islam.
Islam.